So now we know who shot him, and to be sure, a lot of us know. They say the audience for Dallas last night may be the largest ever to watch a TV show, and they're still talking about it today.
One star was shot on screen, and 350 million people around the world stopped everything to find out who did it. Another came back from the dead and explained it with a shower scene that became the most mocked moment in television history. And you know what's even crazier? Dallas almost never made it to a second episode, but after CBS took a chance on a primetime soap opera about Texas oil money, it exploded into a worldwide phenomenon that 350 million people tuned into for a single episode alone. But with that kind of fame came affairs, addictions, betrayals, and lives that were far messier than anything that happened on screen at Southfork Ranch. So here's where it all started for the faces you all know and what really happened to them over the past 48 years. Before the Ewings and the Barneses were tearing each other apart, there was Cliff. Ken Kercheval played Cliff Barnes, the perpetual underdog, the man who spent 14 seasons being outmaneuvered, humiliated, and outright defeated by J.R. Ewing at every turn. And somehow, audiences couldn't stop rooting for him. He was one of only 2 actors to appear in every single season of Dallas. Larry Hagman was the other. That's 357 episodes, 14 years of his life. But there is more, because Ken Kercheval's real life had its own share of battles that rivaled anything on Dallas. He married 4 times. He struggled publicly with alcohol. He returned for the 2012 TNT reboot, reprising Cliff Barnes one last time, still fighting the Ewings, still refusing to go quietly. But suddenly, something happened because shortly after the reboot ended, Kercheval stepped back from public life almost entirely. He gave occasional interviews. He attended a few conventions. And then, on the 21st of April 2019, Ken Kercheval passed away. He was 83 years old. Cliff Barnes spent 14 seasons fighting for justice and never quite getting it. Ken Kercheval spent his career showing up anyway, and that counted for more than any victory could have. But Cliff Barnes wasn't the only one on Dallas who fought battles the cameras never saw. Because Charlene Tilton arrived at Southfork at 18 years old, the tabloids immediately called her the Poison Dwarf. And what happened behind the scenes was far more turbulent than anything Lucy Ewing ever did on screen. She was the sassiest Ewing in Southfork. Charlene Tilton played Lucy Ewing, the rebellious, flirtatious niece of J.R., who arrived on screen as a teenager and immediately made every scene she was in more combustible. The tabloids called her the Poison Dwarf, a nickname she later embraced with humor. She was 18 years old when Dallas began. The world was watching. But here's where it gets really interesting, because while Lucy was supposed to be the wild child, Charlene Tilton's real life was even more turbulent. She married twice, once to musician Johnny Lee, and once to entertainment lawyer Dominic Allen. Both ended in divorce. She was open about her struggles with weight and self-image, speaking candidly in later years about the pressure of being a young woman under that kind of scrutiny in 1980s Hollywood. But there is more, because Charlene never stopped working. Made-for-TV movies, Hallmark films, the occasional reality show. In 2009, she appeared on Dancing on Ice in the UK. She has spoken openly about her faith becoming a cornerstone of her life. In 2026, Charlene Tilton is 66 years old. Still performing, still sharp, still with a bit of that Ewing spark. Lucy Ewing was the wildest girl at Southfork. Charlene Tilton turned out to be far more resilient than anyone who called her a poison dwarf ever gave her credit for. But while Charlene Tilton stayed in the game, Victoria Principal made a choice that almost no one in Hollywood ever makes. She walked away from one of the biggest shows on earth, mid-fame, and simply never came back. She was the heart of Dallas. Victoria Principal played Pamela Barnes Ewing, the woman who married into the Ewing dynasty against all odds. The moral compass of a show that desperately needed one. For 9 seasons, she was the reason you believed any of it. Bobby and Pam were Dallas's golden couple. And then, in 1988, Victoria Principal simply walked away. No fanfare. No big goodbye episode, just gone. But you know what's even crazier? She didn't just leave acting. She left Hollywood entirely. She launched a skincare company. She studied. She reinvented herself so completely that for years, there were rumors about why she really left: creative differences, a desire for a James Bond film role, frustration with the show's direction. But suddenly, something happened that nobody expected because rather than a Hollywood comeback, Victoria Principal found her purpose somewhere completely different. Since 2012, she has been living on a ranch outside Los Angeles, rescuing and rehabilitating animals that have been neglected or abused. Horses, ponies. This is not a charitable organization, she told TV Insider. They all live out the rest of their lives with me. It fills me with joy every day. In January 2026, Victoria Principal turned 76 years old. She celebrated with a ranch party, carrot cake, and her rescue pony Tommy tucked under her arm. Pamela Barnes Ewing fought for love in a world that didn't believe in it. Victoria Principal turned out to be fighting for something far quieter and perhaps far more meaningful. But if Victoria's disappearance from Hollywood surprised Dallas fans, nothing prepared people for the raw, complicated story of Linda Gray, who played Sue Ellen's alcoholism while quietly carrying more personal pain than anyone watching ever knew. She was vodka in shoulder pads and heartbreak in human form. Linda Gray played Sue Ellen Ewing for 12 seasons, the long-suffering, frequently drunk, perpetually wronged wife of J.R. Ewing. And what started as a throwaway role for Pretty Window Dressing became one of the most layered female characters in primetime television history. 2 Golden Globe nominations, an Emmy nomination, fans around the world who saw their own pain reflected in a beauty queen trapped in a marriage she couldn't escape. But here's where it gets really interesting, because behind the scenes, Linda Gray was fighting her own battles. The show was, by her own description, deeply chauvinist. When she asked to direct episodes as her co-stars Patrick Duffy and Larry Hagman had done, the producers fired her. It was only because Larry Hagman threatened to walk off the show entirely that she got her job back. But that's not all, because Linda Gray's personal life had its own quiet griefs. She lost her son to cancer in 2020. She had polio as a child. Her mother was an alcoholic, which made playing Sue Ellen's addiction more personal than anyone watching ever knew. In 2026, Linda Gray is 85 years old. She is still acting, still traveling. She walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain and still telling interviewers exactly what she thinks. Sue Ellen Ewing was always the smartest person in the room, even when the room refused to see it. Linda Gray turned out to be exactly that, a woman the industry underestimated for decades and who outlasted almost all of them. But if Linda Gray was underestimated by Dallas, the next woman arrived on set already carrying one of the most famous names in the entire world, because Priscilla Presley joined Dallas in 1983, not as an actress trying to make it, but as Elvis Presley's ex-wife trying to finally be seen on her own terms. Before she ever set foot on Southfork Ranch, Priscilla Presley was already one of the most famous women in the world, and not because of anything she'd done herself. She was Elvis's wife, Elvis's ex-wife, the woman in the photographs, the woman in the shadow. When she joined Dallas in 1983 as Jenna Wade, Bobby Ewing's long-lost love, it was her first real chance to be seen on her own terms. But you know what's even crazier? Priscilla Presley turned out to be a genuinely gifted comedic actress. The Naked Gun trilogy proved that. She had timing. She had presence. She was more than the name she carried. But there is more, because the years after Dallas were defined by loss in ways that would have broken most people. Elvis died in 1977.
Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently it was a heart attack. He was found at his home in Memphis, not breathing. His road manager tried to revive him. He failed.
Then, in January 2023, her daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, died at 54.
Lisa Marie Presley, the only child of Elvis, dead at 54. Her mother, Priscilla, confirming the news. It is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news.
Priscilla was 77 years old and had outlived her child. And then, in 2025, a lawsuit accused her of hastening Lisa Marie's death to take control of Elvis's estate. Her attorney called it malicious character assassination. Her granddaughter, Riley Keough, stood behind her publicly. In 2026, Priscilla Presley is 80 years old. She has hinted at exciting new projects and continues to be the keeper of an extraordinary legacy. Jenna Wade came to Southfork looking for the life she'd always deserved. Priscilla Presley spent her whole life doing the same thing and never quite got to stop proving herself. But while Priscilla Presley carried the weight of one legend, Patrick Duffy carried something even heavier because he left Dallas when Bobby Ewing died, came back when Bobby stepped out of a shower and turned a whole season into a dream, and then lost the person who had been his entire world for 43 years. He was the good Ewing, the one you trusted. Patrick Duffy played Bobby Ewing, JR's younger brother, the moral center of the family, the man who loved Pamela Barnes against everything his family stood for. For 7 seasons, he was the anchor that kept Dallas from becoming pure soap opera chaos. But here's where it gets really interesting, because Patrick Duffy left Dallas at the end of season 8. Bobby Ewing died. It was supposed to be final. And then in one of the most infamous moments in television history, he came back. Pam walked into the shower. Bobby was standing there. An entire season of Dallas was revealed to have been a dream. It became a punchline. It became a cultural touchstone. But suddenly something happened that had nothing to do with television, because in October 2017, Duffy's wife of 43 years, Carlin Rosser, passed away. They had met when he was 18. She had been his person for his entire adult life. He has spoken about the grief with quiet honesty, saying he was lost for a long time after. It was Linda Gray who eventually helped pull him back. In 2026, Patrick Duffy is 77 years old. He still plays Stephen Logan on The Bold and the Beautiful. He sells sourdough starter kits from a company called Duffy's Dough. He is in a relationship with actress Linda Pearl. Bobby Ewing was the one who always came back, no matter how impossible. Patrick Duffy turned out to be the same way, a man who walked through real grief and found his way to the other side. But the greatest loss in Dallas history, the one that ended an era and left a hole that nothing could fill, belongs to Larry Hagman. Because Ewing didn't just die on screen. Hagman died in real life while filming season 2 of the reboot, and his castmates found out on Thanksgiving weekend. There has never been a television villain quite like J.R. Ewing. And there has never been an actor quite like Larry Hagman. The scheming, cheating, manipulating, grinning oil man who made you hate him and root for him in the same breath. J.R. wasn't just a character, he was a cultural event. When he was shot in the 1980 season finale, 350 million people around the world tuned in to find out who did it. But you know what's even crazier? Larry Hagman spent decades battling addiction before Dallas even began. He drank heavily throughout the 1970s. By his own account, there were long stretches he couldn't fully remember. He eventually underwent a liver transplant in 1995. He cleaned up. He became someone who talked openly about recovery. But this was just the start, because Larry Hagman also came back. In 2012, he reprised J.R. Ewing for the TNT reboot of Dallas, 21 years after the original ended. He was 80 years old, still scheming, still grinning. And then, on the 23rd of November 2012, just weeks into filming the second season, Larry Hagman died of complications from acute myeloid leukemia.
The passing of a TV icon. Larry Hagman died yesterday, suffering complications from his battle with cancer. The star of Dallas and I Dream of Jeannie, he'll be remembered most for his most famous character, J.R. Ewing.
His castmates found out on Thanksgiving weekend. He had been keeping his illness quiet to protect the show and the people around him. Patrick Duffy and Linda Gray learned the news together. They held each other and wept. The show's producers had to write his death into the script, filming JR's funeral while they were still grieving the man himself. J.R. Ewing was the man who never lost. Larry Hagman turned out to be the man who fought everything: the bottle, the cancer, the end of the show he loved, and kept going until he simply couldn't anymore. Dallas was never meant to be taken seriously. It was a soap opera about oil money and betrayal in Texas. Critics dismissed it. Emmy voters largely ignored it. And 350 million people stopped everything they were doing to watch one man get shot. Behind those numbers were real people, people who dealt with addiction, divorce, grief, the loss of children, and the long, complicated weight of being famous for playing someone else's worst version of themselves. Some of them thrived, some are still finding their way, and one of them simply packed up everything, moved to a ranch, and spent the rest of her life rescuing animals that needed someone to fight for them. There is only one original Dallas, and now you know what it really cost the people who made it.